So, can everybody hear me okay? All right. I've been thinking about this last year. It has been a little over like a year and a week since the election. And I will say, I remember how I felt this time last year. I remember how I felt after the election. Um, I kind of felt sick to my stomach. And I kind of have spent the last year every morning waking up about 4 a.m. with just kind of this pit of sadness in my stomach, um, based on the leadership of the person who won the election. And I have to say, it's as bad as we thought. It's as bad as I thought. And it's worse in many ways because this time last year, everything that I feared would happen in this country was theoretical. And a year later, women are being kicked out of the military. Federal troops are in our city streets. We've created concentration camps called Alligator Alcatraz. And the attack or the ability to attack at will anybody who doesn't appear as a white Christian man is real. People are being torn out of their cars and then just disappeared in the United States a year after the election that many of us saw would be coming. And so this weekend, we intentionally labeled our auction Celebrating DEI. And I intentionally titled this sermon Celebrating DEI this morning. And then this morning, what came to me were the words, holding the line. So the official title of my sermon today is Celebrating DEI, Holding the Line. Because for the past year, I feel like I have been this repeating record of standing up here every Sunday and saying, here is what matters. Here is what matters. Here is what matters. And I've been saying, don't lose your heart. Don't lose your joy. Don't lose your compassion. And so it was probably this sermon this time last year when I shared my idea about the concept of the shields, knowing that there were going to be arrows coming at us and recognizing that none of us can protect ourselves from everything coming at us by ourselves. But I said, if we lock arms and we create an outward facing circle, and each one of us has a shield, whether it's compassion or whether it's education or whether it's music or whether it's writing, and we each focus on our shield, we lock arms, we're protecting ourselves, and we are protecting each other. And that's why we have that big shield, that beautiful shield that Corey created for us in the stairwell, reminding us that we are stronger together, remembering what it is like to be connected and letting those shields, letting our individual shields be strength and kindness and compassion and education and all of that. And I will say, I was talking about that. We had a little bit of a reprieve from November to January, and then I will say they came after everything all at the same time with the full power of the federal government. And they still are. And the latest example is our president going all the way up to the Supreme Court in order to not release SNAP benefits to feed people during the shutdown. And I'm sure there might be some of you right now saying, um, and Wendy, well, you're just standing up here. Well, aren't you just standing up here being political? And I just said I didn't want to be political. And I'm going to say no, because everything that I just named is a human dignity issue. And as a faith community, human dignity comes first. The interconnected web of all of us comes first. Otherwise, who are we? And what's our purpose for being here if we're not going to show up, stand up, and speak up for people whose human dignity is being ignored and stripped? And what good is a faith community or a religion if it is looking the other way when injustice is happening? What good is that? And so here we are. So, yes, I'm going to continue to stand up here and celebrate the concepts of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because those are beautiful words. They are what makes this country magnificent, and we are the keepers of that. We are the ones that have to hold that strong, and especially as Unitarian Universalists, because we know how to do this, because that's who we are. That's the core essence of who we are as a faith community. So other religions, other faith communities, other organizations in the Valley, they look to us to see how to hold those beautiful words. How do you hold diversity, equity, and inclusion? And I have to say, this year, we have been. We have been. And it matters. So, with us intentionally continuing every day to be in control of our own emotions, to show up, to stand up, to speak up, and to say, no, we are not letting compassion, creativity, strength be defined by the lowest common denominator of racism, misogyny, and hate. We are not going there. That is not political. That is faithful, and that is being faithful to the principles that we stand for. And those principles are larger and stronger than any specific place in history or point in time. And that's why they're principles, because they transcend space and time. Human dignity is human dignity, whether you were living in ancient Israel or Atlantis or on planet Mars or here in the United States. Dignity is dignity. The interconnected web, we're interconnected, regardless of whether we were living 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years in the future. We're interconnected. And what I think we've been doing, and I think we need to continue to do, and I think we're being successful at it, is we are fighting for the soul of our country. I think we are, but we're doing okay. We're doing it. And that is demonstrated just last night due to some amazing hard work from an amazing auction team and then so many people in this congregation. And all of the auction teams throughout the history of this congregation. Every year we have these amazing people who sign up and stand up and say, we're going to put on this beautiful thing to generate income so that we can be the faith community that we need to be. And that's why we get to be who we are in the world. And we're doing it. And we I think had probably the highest grossing auction, all the numbers aren't in yet, since I've been a minister here. And I think it's because of a great team, but it's also because of who we have decided to be this year. Because we have decided to be the people that say, we're going to show up, we're going to stand up, we're going to speak up, we're going to do it together, and we're going to do it with compassion, love, and kindness, and strength and power. Because treating somebody with compassion and kindness is not weak, that is strong. And we are strong together. So, because we have been standing up and we've been saying, along with so many other millions of Americans, it's not just us, but because of people all over the country and all over the world have been saying, standing up and saying, no, you don't just get to grab somebody out of their car because they don't look the right way. You don't get to just take away a woman's military career when she's about to be promoted simply because she's a woman. You don't get to do that. And you might be thinking to yourself, because I think to myself as I'm talking sometimes, you might be thinking to yourself, but Wendy, they are doing that. Yes, I know they are doing that. And we are doing this. And guess who is strong? And guess who is growing? And guess who has community? And guess who has each other? And guess who is not letting other people be invisible or lost or scared? That's what we're doing. What are they doing? They're covering for pedophiles. So for a year now, I've been saying this is how we win. This is how we survive. And when I say we, I mean humanity. I mean the soul of America. I mean the beautiful people who make up the diverse strength and wisdom and light of this country. That's who I'm talking about when I say we are winning. The people who have open hearts and understand that love and compassion is strength. And I want to say, we're stronger than ever. I want to say we're more compassionate than ever. I want to say we're more loving than ever. And diversity, equity, and inclusion are beautiful words. They always have been. They always will be. So last year, we created shields. Now we get to hold the line. And that's what celebrating DEI is. It's holding the line. So the question then becomes, how do we hold the line with joy, with compassion, with diversity, with equity, with inclusion? How do we hold that line? And I say, first of all, we have to have fun doing it, right? Joy is an act of resistance. Let's laugh. Let's dance. Let's have community together. There was a lot of laughter here last night. There was a lot of joy. Diversity is a form of resistance. We don't all think the same way. We don't all have the same ideas. We don't all have the same strengths or gifts or talents. That's why we come together in our diversity to be strong. We hold the line with inclusion. Inclusion is a form of resistance. We intentionally look to see who is slowly becoming invisible or being intentionally disappeared. That is our job, to look and to see and to search and bring those people in so that they are safe. So we don't let that invisibility happen. And there are protests all over the country. These are what the protests in Chicago and Portland are about. The fact that I think Alligator Alcatraz is shut down. I'm not sure. But it was because of the people that were saying, no, who's in there? Who are you making invisible right now? And we need to see them. And we're not 100% successful right now. People have disappeared. But it's our job, it's our role to continue holding that line and not letting them become invisible. And that's why these protests are so important. That's why having millions of people show up to the No Kings rally was so important. That's why showing up at the polls 2 weeks ago was so important. Because our actions matter. Our voices matter. Showing up matters, and we are making a difference. And so now I'm going to go a little bit metaphysical on all of you. So, stick with me if you can. But there's something called the collective conscience, universal mind, and that is where, as a whole, humanity is connected on a mental level so that we can relate to each other. That's how we communicate with each other. But part of the problem is within that collective consciousness, there's also something called mass hypnotic thinking. And the mass hypnotic thinking is where we are getting in trouble right now in this country and throughout the world. And it's understanding how mass hypnotic thinking works, and that's how you control people through cults. That's how there's a whole methodology and strategy to that. And it has been used brilliantly for decades now, to the point that now there are millions of people who no longer think for themselves. They ignore what they are seeing with their own eyes and hearing with their own ears, and they are waiting to be told what reality is, and then they allow themselves to enter into that reality that has been approved for them. And this is a real thing. And I hate to say it, but at this point in time, I think Donald Trump could go outside right now and say the sky is green. And there would be podcasters and talk show hosts explaining the scientific understanding of why that actually could be a valid point. And his influencers and professional propagandists, and that's what I'm going to call them now, professional propagandists will jump right on board and start calling the sky green and defending the color green with every fiber of their being. But with the mass hypnotic thinking that has been perpetrated on this country, with that, people begin to think that up is down and down is up and left is right and blue is green, and it gets confusing. And so I say that is why we have our shields. That is why we hold the line. We hold that line, like I said, with joy, with laughter, with intelligence, with education, with critical thinking, with questioning, with the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and understanding that that is a principle for everybody in this country. Everybody has the right for a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. So we hold that line. And then, and I wasn't quite here last year at this time, but I'm going to say this now. We hold that line because it's so important, and then we extend a hand. If we have friends or loved ones who are realizing that maybe they've been sucked into mass hypnotic thinking, and they are considering whether it is time to jump ship Now is the time to give them a safe place to land, a safe bridge to cross. Everything that we feared would happen has happened and is happening. And the more people who are willing to jump off of that ship and help us turn the course, help us turn the trajectory of where this massive ship is going, we need them. The fewer people who are helping guide this ship this way and getting off and helping row some boats, my metaphors are all over the place, and turning the tide, we need everybody that's willing to help us turn the tide. And I want to say, in life, timing is very important because there is timing to so much. And so when somebody is starting to maybe wake up and look around and say, maybe I kind of got sucked into some of that collective consciousness, mass hypnotic thinking, and I'm kind of disoriented. Now's not the time to say, well, what were you thinking? No, now is when somebody has jumped off a ship and they're drowning, you get them into a life raft. You get them warm and safe and dry. And then when you're on dry land, down the road, when they're safe and they're warm and they're dry, then you might say, hey, curious, why were you on that ship in the first place? Let's talk about another, I know the analogies, but let's talk about why you walked that plank to begin with. And I'll be honest, now may not be the time for that conversation with those people in our lives. The we told you so, the what were you thinking, the I don't think we're right there yet. It's a here's my hand. Things might be kind of scary right now. We have a community of people that have been holding each other up. We're going to help hold you up, help get you reoriented. And then maybe we can have a conversation so that we don't all get on this same ship again. Because right now we just need to get as many people off of that ship and into life rafts as possible. And in the meantime, we protect the people who are not safe. We use our voices for the people who can't speak. And we shine the light and help people who are becoming invisible be seen so that they can be protected. That's, I guess, the call to action this year. Let's keep our shields up. Let's hold the line. Let's protect the soul of this nation. And let's do it with joy and laughter, compassion, and kindness. So let's start that with a song, De Colores, number 305 in your gray hymnal.